This should be live. Alright, so what I want to say, oh, sorry, I almost clicked end stream on accident. If you have any questions and you're watching this again after it goes live on any of the systems, whether it's Tapa, or, which I forgot to look up how to pronounce that name, or this land depression, you can always leave it in the comments and I will get back to you, or cover it in the next video. Currently just sharing the stream. And speaking of which, I'm going to look up how to pronounce Tapa real quick. Which that is going to be impacting China. Let me do it here. Tapa.
Tapa,
Tapa. Tapa. Okay, not too difficult. Alright, so we are mainly going to be covering this North Indian Ocean system that's currently over the nearby the India-Pakistan border, and I believe it is currently over Rajasthan right now, the state in western India. Let me just make sure this is live. Okay, Tapa, thank you. So, the reason we're covering this system right now is because it's going to be a possible major flood threat for the triple point of Rajasthan, Gujarat, and southeastern Pakistan, where there could be upwards of 300 to 500 millimeters of rain that could fall over the next 5 days or so. And now, just for comparison, 300 to 500 millimeters is around their yearly average of rainfall. So they could get a year's worth of rainfall just over the next 5 days. That's why this is pretty significant and why I'm mainly going to be focusing on this system. So, let's get into it. So the forecast here, I do believe it's a tropical depression right now, tropical cyclone, been sustaining convection over a well-defined circulation. It should remain as a tropical depression over the next 2.5 days or so before it begins to weaken when it's moving over more central southern Pakistan. And then after that, by day 4, it should be dissipating, although its remnant moisture will be continuing west and towards the northernmost Arabian Sea. So that's just the general forecast there. Of course, it could meander more to the north, more to the south, but generally just going to be moving at a very slow pace towards the west. All right, now let's talk about impacts here. So again, most of these impacts are going to be in the form of rain. This is just freshwater flooding. Not as much of a wind threat, surge threat, anything like that. So there's a broad area of marginal impacts for northern Gujarat and southwestern Rajasthan and southeastern Pakistan over here. And again, this is mainly in the form of rain, could see around 50 millimeters or more. This yellow area is the area of slight impacts here, which includes again southeastern Pakistan, far northern Gujarat, southwestern Rajasthan, and once again, southeastern Pakistan there. And now we get into the the worst impacts here. In the moderate category here, you'll see this trail, and it's more on the southern side of wherever the disturbance or land depression ends up going. But it does include, once again, that area between southeastern Pakistan, northern Gujarat, and southwestern Rajasthan there, which could see let's see, I'd say over 100 millimeters of rain, maybe over 150 millimeters of rain. And then there's this core of impacts, which could see, it's a possibility of major impacts, which is at that triple point, again, of Gujarat, Rajasthan states, and India and southeastern Pakistan. These areas here could see around 300 to 500 millimeters of rain, a year's worth of rain in just the next 5 days or so. Let's see what else. So now let's take a look at the world of tropics right now, because there's again a fair amount going on right now. There's 3 systems that we have codes active for. Let's start off with the Atlantic. 91L no longer exists, but there is an area of interest here with a 10% chance of development, mainly in the 7-day range. Say 4 to 7 days or so. In the Eastern Pacific, we have, I believe Kiko is still in the Eastern Pacific technically. It is currently a Category 4 and has become a Category 4 again. It's been flip-flopping between Cat 3, Cat 4 for a while now. And that system looks like it's going to go towards the north of Hawaii. Lorena is still a remnant low, just meandering southwest of Baja California Sur. There is also an area of interest here with a 10% chance of development along the coast of Mexico. This is mainly in the next 5 to 10 days or so, but in the 7-day chances it's 10%. Looking in the western Pacific, we have Pepa here, which is a non-tropical storm now. It's now an extratropical cyclone, but it does have that chance that it could try to regain some subtropical characteristics. It just has to fend off against some drier air and detach from that front. Otherwise, it's just going to remain subtropical. So around a 20% chance of becoming subtropical, fairly low. We do have Tropical Storm Tapa here in the South China Sea, which is expected to move towards Guangdong province in China. Could become a typhoon, that can't be ruled out. It depends on how quick it organizes. It has about, I believe, 24 hours or so until it makes that landfall. And then it should move inland there. But if you notice, there's no other disturbances over the next week in the western Pacific Basin, which is quite nice. In the North Indian Ocean, we have this tropical depression here, winds of around 35 miles an hour. Nearly a tropical storm. Again, I wouldn't rule out the possibility it tries to strengthen to a tropical storm over land in these more intense thunderstorms. Again, it shouldn't be moving off towards the west and dissipating over the next 4 days or so. We also have 92S in the southwest Indian Ocean here, with a 50% chance of development over the next 7 days as it meanders mainly west-southwestwards. And there is also another disturbance in the southwest Indian Ocean here with a 20% chance of development, mainly in the next 3 to 7 days. So the southwest Indian Ocean is more active than the Atlantic right now, which is pretty impressive. So let's take a look at some of the satellite imagery of these storms here. I'm going to start off with looking at the North Indian Ocean system mainly. Oh wait, hold on. I forgot to cover the fact the codes here. We are currently code red for that North Indian Ocean disturbance there, and we are code orange for Tropical Storm Tapa, which is nearly code red, and code orange for Hurricane Kiko. Right now, looking at the satellite imagery of the North Indian Ocean system, you can see these thunderstorms off towards the west, mainly over Gujarat state and western India and far southeastern Pakistan, with the center of the circulation just off in that triple point right now. We can see a generally broad circulation there, but it shows us that it is likely a tropical cyclone. If we take a look at the infrared imagery, we can see cloud tops in the around minus 80 degrees Celsius range here, off towards the west of where the center is located. Let me just change the colors so it's easier to see. Located right around there with all these thunderstorms off towards the west. So it's not exactly vertically stacked right now where the thunderstorms are compared to the center. It's a little bit lopsided to the west, but we should see a little bit more organization over the next 12 to 24 hours. That's why I think it does have a slight chance of becoming a tropical storm. Let's see, skipping ahead to the distances from certain areas. It is currently only around 70 kilometers away from Pakistan. Or I don't know what this is exactly. I think that's Pakistan, yeah. It's a state here, I think. Beyond that, looking at Iran, around 1,000 kilometers away, and from Oman, around 1,200 kilometers away or so. Shouldn't quite reach there. Maybe some of the remnant moisture. It's a little bit too far out to say for sure. All right, Sindh region of Pakistan. Thank you. Is it pronounced Sindh? S-I-N or Sindh? I'm just gonna make sure real quick using this. Just give me one moment.
Sindh.
Sindh. Okay. That should be right then. Thank you so much for your help on that. I did not know. Alright, let's see what else. Looking at the models on this system, the European model does show some of that intensification over the next 12 hours or so before it then gradually weakens when it moves over Pakistan, and then eventually into the Arabian Sea and dissipates. And I'm believing that's going to be due to drier air. I'm just gonna double check if that's the case. Yes, eventually it moves from this moist air mass into just drier air over there and pretty much just fizzles out, gets choked out by it. You can see all this dry air funneling from the north, from Iran and Pakistan into the Arabian Sea and pretty much chokes out the system. Let's see what shear is looking like. Not too bad there from the north or anything like that. But that's the European run. After that, there isn't really anything else that develops here. Looking at the American run, it does have the system briefly becoming a tropical storm. That is possible over the next 6 to 12 hours or so. Depends on how much more organization it gets before it gradually weakens and it moves and dissipates over Pakistan over the next 3 days. The German model on the system does have it strengthening likely to a tropical storm before moving into Pakistan and then moves to the southwest into the Arabian Sea and dissipates over the next 4 days. Looking at the Canadian run here, it doesn't really recognize the system much, and it just has a weak low pressure moving over Pakistan and dissipates within the next 3 days. Now, if we take a look at some of the ensembles, these are the European ensembles to be specific here. It moves off towards the west over to Pakistan there, and then pretty much dissipates by day 3 or 4 over central Pakistan or the Arabian Sea. We can see that on here. Not a whole lot after that, just this system moving off towards the west or west-southwest into the Arabian Sea and most likely dissipating there. Looking at the American ensembles here, American ensembles do have it going a little bit more to the north into central Pakistan and dissipating there, not really showing it reaching the Arabian Sea. You can kind of see that on here, moving off towards the northwest and dissipating. Alright, now looking at the rainfall potential over the next 5 days, I'm going to first off start by showing the American run here. Again, these are lower resolution, so it doesn't show it as great. But areas in the around the border of India and Pakistan could see rainfall amounts as high as 190 to 200 millimeters of rain, at least on the American run. Looking at the German run, there are higher totals, up to around 300 millimeters there, and the same story is true for the European run, showing around 320 millimeters of rain. But there could be isolated totals of up to 500 millimeters, depending on where all this rain falls. Alright, now I am going to answer some questions. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat and I will gladly answer. I'm going to look at what the questions were on the last stream. Oh, and we've just hit 2.7 thousand subscribers. Thank you guys so much. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do so. Just stay up to date. Okay, so one of the questions on the last video was asking about Kiko. If it was a high-end Cat 3, Cat 4 at the time. It's likely a high-end Cat 3 at the last update. Alright. Now I'm going to look at what other questions there are right now. Typhoon Lover mentioned earlier, North Indian Ocean is so inactive but very active on rainfall. I'd say it's been pretty active in terms of land depressions. Other than that, it's been pretty quiet, and I think that the basin has enjoyed that quietness from like major cyclones, things like that, severe cyclonic storms. Let's see what else. Alright. Mackenzie asks, what happened with 91L model falling apart? I forget what caused that exactly. Um, Here, hold on. There was actually a great discussion I saw on Twitter that I'm going to take a look at. That I think did a pretty good job on explaining why the system fell apart. Um, okay, yeah. All right, so the main reason why it didn't form was it didn't really detach itself from the ITCZ here, the Intercontinental Convergence Zone. So because of that, it was just pretty much stuck against it. It wasn't able to lift out. So it really never got its vortex together. It opened up into a trough. Let's see, and also there was a lot more dry air that entrained in the system, which pretty much choked out any convection. And one of the background things of a what we call a Kelvin wave moved away from the system, and so pretty much any convection there that was supported off of that pretty much fizzled out, and then the system uh, pretty much dissipated, fizzled out completely there. Something I did want to note though is the European AI model and the ensembles pretty much. European AI never really showed development, but the ensembles were pretty much 50-50 on it. That's why I didn't really want to go so high on it. I went around 70 to 80% on it. I was quite surprised to see the Hurricane Center jump to 90% on something that wasn't even really close to becoming a tropical cyclone. That's why you don't want to go that high on those kind of systems. Let's see what else. Um, okay. Hi, Alberto. Let's see what else. I'm gonna drink some water real quick, stay hydrated. Ooh, someone actually brings up a good point. Ather Niajo um, mentions, why does this land depression remind me of Asna last year? Again, these land depressions can be quite similar to one another, and I do remember that storm. It started out likely as a land depression over eastern India and meandered off towards the west there before becoming a tropical cyclone by around Gujarat and what was the other place called? Sorry, Rajasthan. And also something interesting about this system here is this is the remnants of Nongfa here, off towards the west earlier, and it got absorbed by this new disturbance. Otherwise, it could have been Nongfa, the storm that hits Vietnam, that could have tried to redevelop here. But eventually, an area of spin developed over by the Bay of Bengal, and then got pretty much stronger and was able to absorb Nongfa. The Fujiwara interaction. GC, you don't know your geography? I think I know my geography a good amount across the world. I know more countries than most people do because of the tropics. And I'm getting better on regions. But keep in mind there are thousands of states across um, thousands of states and provinces across the world, so it's hard to memorize all of them. Think about like provinces in the Philippines as well, so it's there's a lot to try to memorize, and I'm learning as we go on with this stuff on what names like Gujarat, Rajasthan, Sindh, that kind of stuff. TCS, so why is it code red mainly? Um, the main reason for code red on the system is one, there's a small amount of popularity to it, like a small group of people talking about it or caring about it. But the main reason is going to be the wind threats and the population getting impacts of it. Those are the two main reasons why it's such a high code level. Mackenzie asked if Tapa is going to become a typhoon. And I know I'm a little bit behind on chat, but don't worry. If you still have questions, just leave them in the chat and I will gladly get to them in a bit. Now, Tapa does have the chance to become a typhoon. I believe it's estimated to be around 45 knots right now. And it has around 24 hours or so, a little bit over 24 hours until it makes that landfall, somewhere west of Hong Kong in Guangdong province. So I could see that happening. It's forecasted to reach a 60 knot peak now by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Not as high as their 65 knot peak earlier. I could see a possible typhoon out of this. It's trying to get better organized here. You can see this healthy band to the southwest there, looking pretty nice. That little shrimp shape there. So here's your center right in there. So it's getting a little bit less sheared now. It's still lopsided though. You can see most of the convection and thunderstorms to the southern side of it. But yeah, I mean, we could see a typhoon out of this. I don't think we have radar imagery on this storm. Um, you know, hmm. Oh, let me scroll up. I missed something. Typhoon Lover asks, will this land depression be a tropical storm? It does have the possibility. It depends on these thunderstorms that flares up and how much that helps in increasing the winds, the sustained winds here. We could see some gale force winds in some of these thunderstorms, so we could see a brief tropical storm out of this, but it'd be very brief. I'd say only 6 to 12 hours at most, before it then quickly goes back down to a tropical depression and starts to fizzle out. See what other questions. Mackenzie asks, how much rainfall from Tapa? Let's take a look at that on the models here. There's going to be a good amount of rain here for parts of, I believe, Guangdong province and the surrounding provinces of China, southern China here. This is the European run, showing some areas could get as high as 320 millimeters of rain. The American run goes a little bit more to the south here, but does show a larger stretch of areas of around 200 millimeters or so into Guangdong and Guangxi provinces. But right off the coast could see 250 millimeters of rain or more. The German model here, showing a huge area here of heavy rainfall. Some areas getting up to 300 millimeters, but a general total of around 150 to 250 millimeters of rain could happen across both of these provinces of China, and even parts of northeastern Vietnam. It says heavy rain will be a possibility with this next potential typhoon. Mackenzie mentions Kiko moves on to Hawaii. Well, thankfully, Kiko isn't really going to hit Hawaii. It should stay to the north. If I can load this up, I'll load it on here then. Let's see, did they update their... Wow, that looks pretty. Anyways, it's oh wow, 140 miles an hour they went with. Interesting. Yep, still has it missing Hawaii as a moderate tropical storm or so. I'd like to look at their probabilities of tropical storm force winds, see what that looks like. Parts of northern Hawaii in around that 5 to 10% chance range. It seems unlikely that they'll get tropical storm force winds, fortunately. It seems like it's going to move more to the north. It's a nice trend. Let's see what other questions we have here. Mackenzie asked if there's any update on the South Indian Ocean. Let's look at that. Yeah, we have two disturbances there, one with a 50% chance, 92S, and another one with a 20% chance, which could form after this 92S. Looking at the Southwest Indian Ocean right now, Here's a look at 92S right over here, broad circulation. Got some thunderstorms starting to fire up over the center. Not looking a whole lot, not looking great right now. But if we look in the Indian Ocean right over here and we look at the forecast from the models, could see a brief tropical cyclone out of it. We'll see the Europeans on board with that more now. That's quite interesting to see. Earlier they weren't really liking the idea at their 12Z forecast, I believe it was. No, they did. They showed it as a pretty sloppy system though. So again, we could see a fourth tropical cyclone that's off season here, which would be quite interesting, comparing it to the Atlantic, which has had 6 storms, and it's their season, peak season now. North Indian Ocean nearly doing as great as the Atlantic. After that, if we look at the European AI, or actually, let's take a look at the European AI model here. You can see it doesn't like this system 95 or 94S, I think it was. Let me just double check. 92S, excuse me. Developing, but it does show this next system possibly developing. Doesn't really favor it as much as other systems have. Look at the European ensembles on this system, though. 92S, a lot of support on something developing, potentially even to cyclone strength. Just something to look out for, like Cat 1, possibly. That'd be pretty interesting. I don't know how much the environment supports it. Man, that doesn't look great. That's a lot of shear there. I'm not sure how much it will try to develop. We'll see. Let's see if the Euro AI model, I think that's why it kind of fizzles it out mostly. But yeah, I mean, we could see two disturbances try to form over the next 7 days or so. Typhoon Lover asks, when could we see Gabrielle? And let's see, Mackenzie Olsko asks, any update on Atlantic and Eastern Pacific? Let's nail both of those questions at the same time. So let's start off with the Atlantic here. Again, we could see a disturbance try to form over the next few days. I believe the GFS was more on board with something developing. Nope, not really. Their previous run, they were. If we look at the GFS ensembles, though, they should be showing, tropical wave potentially developing. Support isn't that great anymore. It's marginal at best. Showing something within the next 7 to 10 days or so, and beyond that, just something we'll need to watch. That will come off of Africa over the next 4 days or so. And then we could see development in mid-September. There is also the possibility something sets up by Central America. I've been watching that pretty closely. I don't think it's enough to mark it as a 10%. Not really in range just yet, but maybe something we'll see in mid to later September. So I think Gabrielle, we could get Gabrielle by mid-September. Not early September, though. Now, if we look at the Eastern Pacific, though, I did not really get why the National Hurricane Center marked this disturbance. First, I'm not seeing a whole lot of support from that. But after that, beyond the 7-day range, mainly the 5 to 10-day range here, we could see something trying to develop in the Eastern Pacific. Could become a hurricane or even major hurricane. It's just too far out to say for sure. You can see a lot of these members showing a possible hurricane or major hurricane just before the 10-day range. So we could see a burst in activity there. Let's see what other questions. Axo asks if Kiko becoming a Cat 5 is a possibility. I do not think so. I think the system is already struggling right now, actually. Maybe it's not. I'm going to pull up Dvorak here, just double check how it's doing there. Whoops, I forgot I have so much of this saved. Yeah, I don't think Cat 5 is going to happen out of this. Notice how the cloud tops are already fading away. It's moving into cooler waters as well. If I pull that up on here, you'll see the water temperatures it's in right now, around 26 degrees Celsius. It's going to move into an area of 25 degrees Celsius, 26, 25. So not really that great for intensification. It's just that it's gotten better outflow. Not a whole lot of shear, so that's pretty much why it's strengthened a whole lot. I don't really think it's going to become a Cat 5 at all. Maybe mid-range Cat 4 at most, but it's really running out of time. Will 92S be Blossom? Is Blossom really the next name? I feel like there's a 40% chance or so of that happening, 50% chance of it becoming a tropical depression, around a 40% chance or so at becoming a tropical storm. And Mackenzie, there's been Cat 4's off season, I think, in the Southwest Indian or not Southwest Indian Ocean, in the Southern South Pacific, I think it was. I don't remember exactly where it happened. TC mentions the fact that Kiko just re-strengthened to a Cat 4 for the third time. Yeah, that will happen in these Eastern Pacific areas, Eastern Central Pacific areas. Um, Mainly when there's not a whole lot of sheer, dry air, or anything like that, and if it's able to stay in those somewhat warm waters and not stall as well, because there's not a whole lot of oceanic heat content there. But the waters are just barely warm enough that if it keeps moving, it doesn't have to deal with much upwelling problems in cooler waters. Yes, Lola is the one. Yep. Mackenzie asks, what about the Western Pacific? Let's look at that. In the Western Pacific, I don't think that there's a whole lot to look out for. Some of these ensembles are showing something developing by the Philippines there over the next week. I have yet to mark that. I just don't think there's a whole lot of support in that. Oh geez, there's Kiko over there. Approaching the Western Pacific. Could reach the Western Pacific or it could get pulled to the northeast. We'll see. Not a whole lot of supportive things developing beyond this range. Let's look at the European AI model. If it's detecting any long-range signals. No, not really at all. So we may see a more quieter period, which we should enjoy there. Not like this may be a pretty inactive Western Pacific season if we can get through October, November, December. Now, I mean we've got not real well in terms of ACE, it's inactive. In terms of designations, 22, I think 21, 22. It's been pretty active in terms of that. Um, but thankfully, imagine we can get away with not having a Cat 5 this year. That'd be pretty impressive, or even a Cat 4, for that matter. Typhoon Lover says, "Does Chase even know the Southwest Indian Ocean names?" No way, I don't really know that. Um, I don't, not even really the Eastern Pacific names. Um, and then the North Atlantic and the Western Pacific I know because of those hypotheticals that I make, which I'm almost done with the Western Pacific hypo. Okay, sorry about that. It's just been pretty stressful. You know, Alberto, I hope so as well. I hope that China doesn't get too bad of impacts from Tapa. Maybe it becomes a brief typhoon. It seems like it's going to be. If it becomes a typhoon, that will be a concern for the coast of Guangdong province. Oh, wait, we can see radar. That's kind of helpful. See, I swear they updated their radar something with it. Yeah, here, so we can kind of see a better loop. I might get Windy Premium here for just better radar coverage, stuff like that, to go back even farther in the archive. So I think they also have a satellite archive here. Okay. And 25 bucks a year, not too bad. Not sponsored though. But yeah, southern China there could see a fair amount of rain, maybe 300 to 500 millimeters at most. Oh wait, the other one was made September 9th? I thought it was made in August. Dang, okay. I was trying to I was trying to upload it before the last one, and I thought like, okay, I'll do it in early August, and then I just kept getting pushed back, and then yeah, it will probably be out not this Sunday, but the next Sunday after that. Anyways, that will probably be it. If you have any other questions, let me know, or just type them in the comments of the video, and I will answer them in the next update. Now, talking about when the next stream will be, it could even be tomorrow. Depends on what Tappa is doing. If it's getting more attention, more traction, things like that. If it's really blowing up. Um, Otherwise, it will probably be in 2 days from now. Not today, but the day after. Because this North Indian Ocean system may still be a problem, and Tapha may be still a problem over China. And we'll see. I if it's Code Red, I do streams every 2 days. Code Pink every 1 day. Code Orange basically twice a week. Code Yellow once a week, and then yeah, that's pretty much why I'm doing a stream now, is because we're back in Code Red. Let's see, will Tepa bring a small surge? Yeah, there could be a system that could try to become a typhoon. But Surge, I'm not quite sure about Storm Surge. In terms of other regions of the world, I try not to comment on that. Of course, it could be a concern if you're in a coastal area that's susceptible to saltwater flooding. Of course, you'll be on the eastern side of where it happens. How much rainfall in the Philippines? Let's look at that, and then I will sum it up. Rainfall in the Philippines pretty low, only around 50 to 75 millimeters, or around 10 to 75 millimeters. Something I do want to point out, though, is going to be the extreme forecast here in terms of rain. You can see an area that's pretty prominent across the world. Instead of it being over the water, we have an area here over land in that border between India and Pakistan, with some possibly record-breaking rainfall in some of these areas here. This is just daily records. Then we go on beyond that, still a threat, still a threat, still a threat. And then by around Wednesday or so, it becomes less of a threat. So there's just something to be aware of there. Wind, I'm not sure. Yeah, wind is going to be a concern as well. Pretty gusty. Nothing too crazy, but just it is going to be a little bit gusty today, looks like. And yeah, looking elsewhere across the world, nothing too crazy happening, I don't think. Some parts of Chile could see some heavy rainfall. Other than that, though, that's pretty much it. Let's see about this system, though, if that's going to be popping up here. Yeah, you can see China could see some pretty bad rainfall, near record-breaking, from Tapa. Just something to look out for. So again, if the next stream would probably be on Tapa. Vietnam, I don't think is going to get as much rain from the system. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next update. Stay safe.